In the Demon Clan main hall, Su-Yun-Lan reports to the Demon Lord. The Demon Lord asks if the mystery of demons attacking the royal family has been resolved, stating that his time is up. Su-Yun-Lan shows his smile and confidently announces that the so-called demons in the capital were actually living dead puppets created through apothecarial means and controlled by a talisman. He reveals that only the Yun-Gui sect has the ability to make such puppets, and Meng Qi suggests that the Nings of the Yun-Gui sect are the likely culprits. The Demon Lord responded that the body of the Ning family patriarch was found the previous day, prompting Meng Qi to ask the Demon Lord if he suspects someone may be using the Nings. The Demon Lord appears convinced and not hesitant about his suspicion. He tells Su-Yun-Lan that the violent demonic activity in the border districts is connected to what transpired in the main hall, and assigns Su-Yun-Lan the responsibility of investigating these violent border demons. Given his demon possession technique, a successful hunt for the real murderer would be possible. Su-Yun-Lan stumbled over his words to accept the task. Later at the princess's estate, Su-Yun-Lan is distressed and worried about the investigation, likely due to his recent marriage. Su-Yun-Lan sarcastically thinks that he doesn't want to be pressured if they want to have a grandchild anytime soon. Suddenly, Lai Tang appears and asks Su-Yun-Lan if the case has been solved but got distracted by He Yan's appearance and has inappropriate thoughts about him. Lai Tang makes a vulgar comment about He Yan's appearance and lastly, his chest, and boasts about his own status and power. He Yan with an unimpressed look notices Lai Tang's behavior and expresses concern, while Su-Yun-Lan tells that Lai Tang may be unmedicated. Later, inside the estate, where a maidservant poured tea, Yuanying is concerned about what their father said to him. Su-Yun-Lan reassures her that things are almost wrapped up but reveals that their father is sending him to investigate demonic activity at the border, which makes Yuanying worried. She raises her voice as she shows concern to Su-Yun-Lan and tells him that he doesn't have war experience and it's a suicide mission, which Su-Yun-Lan heartens her to not worries that he and He Yan were together. Then Lai Tang interrupts him by questioning his decision and expressing concern for his family, which made Su-Yun-Lan frustrated to answer Lai Tang. Lai Tang asks permission from her sister to go with them. He believes that with his help, no one will be able to lay a finger on them. Yuanying declines him permission. However, Lai Tang runs after her and begs his sister by telling her that it's his future on the line. As Yuanying realizes that she underestimated his brother and sees an opportunity for him in preparation for the throne and thinks that he's growing up. She then agrees to let him go but advises him to stay open-minded, be cautious, and avoid recklessness, which makes Lai Tang happy. After being given permission, Lai Tang becomes excited and rushes over to He Yan, promising to keep him safe, causing He Yan to give him a weird look. Yuanying instructed Su-Yun-Lan to keep a close watch on Lai Tang and prevent him from acting foolishly, to which Su-Yun-Lan agreed. Additionally, Yuanying gave something to Su-Yun-Lan and offered her personal army to accompany them and ensure their safety since she couldn't join them. As he expressed his gratitude to her, Yuanying also reminded him to return home safely. Su-Yun-Lan shows his affection by kissing her. As Yuanying was startled, her mind raced and affectionately mentions his name. Later, at a street side where a group of people notices Su-Yun-Lan's carriage passing by, they express their admiration for the prince, with some even making inappropriate comments about the princess. He Yan with a smirk comments on Su-Yun-Lan's popularity, which Su-Yun-Lan disagrees with. Amidst the disturbance caused by Lai Tang while asking He Yan to open his mouth, He Yan responds with frustration, cursing Lai Tang. Meanwhile, Su-Yun-Lan became serious, recalling how he was treated when he was suspected of a crime, feeling that the people want him to die. But now the people were treating him in favor since he was back. However, he realizes that the people only cared about the promise of fortune and power he represents. He Yan then changed the topic, asking Su-Yun-Lan about suddenly sending him to the border while Lai Tang distract him. Su-Yun-Lan expresses his belief that the Royal Majesty sees him as a tool. He then shares where he accepts the Royal Majesty's order in the royal court, trying to be humble in his request for rewards. He thought that the more humble he sounded, the gung-ho he was going to be rewarded. However, the Royal Majesty agrees with a fakery, smiled at Su-Yun-Lan and mentioned that they are family after all. Su-Yun-Lan thought that conveys his frustration as he does not receive a significant reward from the Royal Majesty despite his show of humility. He puts on a facade of humor by laughing and calling the Royal Majesty family in a sarcastic tone. The Royal Majesty assigned a task, sarcastically told him as his favorite son-in-law, and threatens severe consequences if he fails. Su-Yun-Lan feels annoyed with the Royal Majesty for putting so much pressure on him. He believes that nothing in life comes for free, and everything has a cost. The Royal Majesty reveals investigation into falsified sales accounts of Ning's warehouse involved the sale of black refined iron to the western border, catching Su Yunlan off guard. His stuttered response revealed concern about the area, which has seen years of unrest and chaos. He also expresses anxiety about the potential consequences of a large shipment of black refined iron, which could start a rebellion. The Royal Majesty expressed concern and stressed the need for capable aides to investigate. Su Yunlan was chosen and then accepted the task. Yan awkwardly smiles and praises the level of trust the father-in-law has in him. Su Yunlan asked why his idiot brother Kui joined them. Yan demands to be respectful towards Kui, as he informs Su Yunlan that whoever solves the border chaos will be named the head of the Black Cavalry. Su Yunlan comments on the high stakes. Yan reveals that he will be the judge for this competition. Su Yunlan makes a playful comment to get on Yan's good side. However, Lai Tang distracts them as he tries to make a manly expression, but Yan stops him by hitting him. Su Yunlan tries to calm them both but decides not to continue. Kui interrupts by opening the cart curtain, surprising Su Yunlan, as Kui vows to prove himself at the border, and insults Su Yunlan by calling him a loser who married a princess by luck and is a waste of space. Su Yunlan mocks Kui, calling him a simpleton, and questions how he became an heir to the demon clan. Kui takes offense and retaliates by calling Su Yunlan a bastard. Su Yunlan ordered a royal guard to remove Kui, and the royal guards intervene by holding a spear to Kui's neck and ordering him to step back. Kui insults the royal guard in fear and yells that Su Yunlan is nothing without his wife from a distance. Yan explains that Kui was adopted by the demon lord after his father passed away, and that their clan's lord was friends with Kui's late father. Su Yunlan acknowledges this information. However, in his mind, he decides that he will spare Kui's life for now due to their family relationship. But if Kui continues to anger him, he won't make things easy for him. Later, in the burning heat, the area of Mount Stratus is also known as the Black Cloud Mountain, where all of them arrived. Su Yunlan expresses relief at finally arriving. Lai Tang, on the other hand, warns Yan to be careful not to lose his footing and offers him a drink, reminding him of the dehydrating effects of the desert in a romantic way. Meanwhile, Su Yunlan and others have scandalous thoughts about Yan and Lai Tang. Yan catches them and tells them to get their mind out of the gutter. Suddenly, a man appears and introduces his name as Minister Liu Mang approaches them and greets Su Yunlan, apologizing for being late. Su Yunlan recognizes Liu Mang as the person His Majesty asked him to keep an eye on. Although Liu Mang doesn't seem like someone who would cause trouble, Su Yunlan decides to observe him further. At that moment, Kui arrives and is greeted by his people who offer him red wine and a place to stay. Minister Liu Mang invites Su Yunlan to continue inside as well, while Su Yunlan observes the situation with a thoughtful expression. Later, at the banquet in Mount Stratus where Su Yunlan is attending with Minister Liu Mang and Kui, Minister Liu Mang explained that resources were scarce, to which Su Yunlan was disgusted with the mediocre food they were served compared to the lavish feast enjoyed by others. Believing that Minister Liu Mang was a rebel, Su Yunlan planned to report him to the authorities. Minister Liu Mang asked about her retainers. Su Yunlan claimed they were on a date when in reality they were secretly investigating. Meanwhile, a servant informed Kui that his companions were outside, which makes Kui excited. Suddenly, a strange guy bursts into the banquet and accuses Su Yunlan of being on an unstoppable murdering spree in the capital, causing Su Yunlan to question himself. The stranger challenges Su Yunlan to a fight, claiming to be the #1 warrior in the West. In the main hall, the warrior said sarcastically to Su Yunlan's receiving gracious invitation. Kui believes that his evil intent is a success, as the warrior came prepared, and the first day is like a hangman feast, a banquet organized with the intention of murdering a guest. As Su Yunlan tries to find a reason to refuse and leave, but before he can, the warrior thanks him for his blessings and strikes him with his fist. Su Yunlan is stunned out of shock, fearing that he may not have the strength to withstand the impact. As the warrior attempts to strike, a man then suddenly intervenes and tightens his grip on the warrior's hand, whom Su Yunlan does not recognize. The warrior identifies the man as Liu Shu and demands to be released. Liu Shu throws the warrior against the wall and scolds him for acting against him in public, causing the warrior to cough up blood. Liu Shu instructed the warrior to leave and reflect on his actions. In an awkward situation, Su Yunlan thanks Liu Shu and admires his capability as the lord of the city. Su Yunlan takes the opportunity to excuse himself, claiming that he has lost interest in the event and needs to rest. he believes to himself that a true man would not stand beside a collapsing wall, and that he needs to get away. Minister Liu Mang congratulates Su Yunlan, while Qiuyi expresses her disdain for the warrior. Later that night in their rooms, He Yan asks Su Yunlan if he's okay and suggests he stays by his side next time, as he was unable to win against an old man. Su Yunlan asks He Yan to trust him. Lai Tang, in the distance, is sad as He Yan is caring for his brother-in-law. Su Yunlan became annoyed and shifted the conversation to business, asking about the progress of the investigation. Lai Tang instantly responds to reports of slow investigation progress, and notes limited power in their position. The city owner can only send a small number of guards daily to work on land outside the city. Su Yunlan indicates that the city has been emptied. Additionally, there have been demonic riots and rumors of bandits outside the city. Su Yunlan murmured bandits in response. He Yan mentioned a strange group of bandits who appeared in the desert, and Su Yunlan showed curiosity about hidden secrets in the city. During the conversation, He Yan is startled by a figure outside the room and feels a sense of suspense and fear. However, upon recognizing the figure as the demon general, he realizes there is no immediate danger. Lai Tang jumps into action and tries to protect He Yan from Demon General, but He Yan grabs his shirt and reassures him that the Demon General is not a threat and his brother-in-law is controlling it. Lai Tang admires his brother-in-law and wonders about He Yan's strength for being a girl unrefined. Later, Su Yunlan, in a form of a demon general, steps outside the city to see the landscape that hides the dirt in Mount Stratus. On a solitary smoke in the desert, Su Yunlan watched the breathtaking sunset over the long river in the western regions. But his moment was interrupted by a sudden scream of a lady. He flies swiftly towards the source of the scream. When he arrived in the area, he was greeted by the sight of thousands of abnormal monster movements that his father told him about. He thinks that it could flatten out Mount Stratus. However, all the demons in his demon general form are trembling, and his muscles are tightened in fear. It was then that he caught a glimpse of a strange silhouette forming on the cliff, wielding a deadly scythe. The figure jumps from the cliff and revealed herself to be a woman with a fierce expression on her face. The monster's movements were stopped in their tracks, and Su Yunlan could sense the danger. The strange woman attacked the abnormal demons with lightning speed as she wielded her scythe. Su Yunlan watched in awe as she is powerful, causing the demon to wail and flee in terror. The strange woman then asks the ladies if someone is injured, to which they respond with gratitude and relief, while Su Yunlan hides in the big rock, questioning why he needs to be in the place if the strange woman is already there to solve the disaster. Suddenly, the woman senses Su Yunlan's presence and swings her scythe, causing rocks to scatter. She thought it was a rat and walks away. Meanwhile, Su Yunlan emerged from the sand. The impact of the hit injured him even in a distance, and expresses fear and frustration when he almost died. Su Yunlan compares the murderous aura of the strange woman, realizing it to be scarier than his father. Later, as Su Yunlan rushed to Mount Stratus by leaping from roof to roof, mentioning that he had a sleepless night, he suddenly heard a woman's voice. While passing by Xu and Qiuyi's house, he thinks it's a strange sound he heard there, so he stops by a tree and saw their silhouette engaging in an intimate activity that makes him feel excited. Xu and Qiuyi asks the woman if he is mighty and decides to go another 300 rounds, but shortly after, he fell asleep and the woman commented that it is too fast, which makes Su Yunlan burst out laughing. And he thought that the woman's voice he heard earlier was different from the one he is hearing now. He thinks that there might be a ghost there. Suddenly, Su Yunlan feeling dizzy from the possession technique. He then quickly possessed a passing pigeon. Although unable to control it, he was surprised when it delivered a message to Xu and Qiuyi's house, revealing that he had possessed Qiuyi's pigeon. Curious about Qiuyi's plans, Su Yunlan overheard him instructing Lao Jiu to make arrangements for the caravan on the east side of the desert, excited about the potential income it could bring for him to indulge in his pleasures with women. Lao Jiu agreed to the plan. Su Yunlan is surprised that he is talking about women again. Meanwhile, in the desert the next day, Su Yunlan pretends to be a coachman in a carriage. Su Yunlan hopes for news about the disguised carriage but receives none. The people around him seem unaware of any information regarding it. However, he finds it strange that he is familiar with the place and question that it is not in the east direction. Suddenly, all the people around him burst into laughter, and Lao Jiu smirked and accuses him of being a Tang country consort turned coachman, demanding an explanation. Su Yunlan glared at him and thought that he's been exposed and unable to use his demonic possession technique. He tries to brush it off, but Lao Jiu mocks his attitude and orders his men to attack. However, the people stop as they feel a strange fear and tension, sensing the intense aura behind them. Su Yunlan feels the murderous intent and recognizes it. Suddenly, the strange woman kills Lao Ju and his people with just one single strike before they can even react except Su Yunlan. Su Yunlan was stunned by the instant strikes and blood flowing over him, and he realizes that it was the woman who killed the monster-like dog that day. The strange woman then approaches Su Yunlan and demands to know who he is by putting his scythe on his neck. At the same time, in the hall of a demon messenger, where a bearer reports the news from Heian that Lord Su Yunlan has been missing for 10 days. The demon lord crushes a flute in his hand upon hearing the news and remembers Su Yunlan as a child who was happily playing it. He expresses his bitterness and calls for the bearer. Meanwhile, the desert wind picked up abruptly and the stench of blood in the air, as he realizes that a scythe is just 0.01 centimeters away from his throat, and the woman wielding the weapon in front of him is both beautiful and terrifying. Su Yunlan then screams in terror when the woman is about to attack him. He pleads for mercy, mentioning that he has been a virgin for 3 lifetimes and has not had the chance to get laid yet. He also apologizes to her father for not producing an heir to continue the family bloodline. To Su Yunlan's surprise, he realizes that he is still alive, and the strange woman speaks to him, recognizing that he is a member of the Tang royal family. Su Yunlan's thoughts turn to survival mode, and he thinks of a way to save himself. He decides to kneel before the woman, showing his sincerity and willingness to live. Su Yunlan then hugs the legs of the woman and calls her a superior, goddess, and mother. He even cried, offering to do anything to spare his life, and offers her wife's influence and wealth as a reward. However, the woman got pissed and smacks Su Yunlan using her foot, telling him to get his filthy hands off her, and seems to have other plans in her mind. She grants Su Yunlan's wish to do anything, but he screams again after that. 3 days later, Su Yunlan shouts out for help, saying he is about to starve to death, showing his disbelief by complaining that his treatment is worse than a dog's and wonders if anyone there is human. He was exhausted after struggling, yet no one replied to him. He acknowledges the woman's strength but doesn't know where he was and is unable to use his demonic possession and has no means to report back either. He worries about survival, wishing for his previous body's capabilities, and hoping not to be the first virgin male led starving to death. Suddenly, he smells something fragrant and sees a child holding a chicken drumstick in front of him. Su Yunlan assures the child that he is not a bad guy and makes a funny face. He then takes the chicken drumstick from the child and tells him he has a bright future. While eating, Su Yunlan tells the child that he likes him and to say his name, Lai Tang, if he ever needs help in the future. Su Yunlan then hears the curtain lift and a woman calls out to Xiao Ying, which is the child's name. She tells Xiao Ying to hurry because her sister Yu is coming back soon. The woman brings Su Yunlan food and warns him not to let Yu find out, which Su Yunlan on the other hand accepts and calls her Miss F in return before introducing himself as Su Yunlan. The woman was confused as to why he called her F, and then introduces herself as Bayor Jai. Su Yunlan was awkwardly shocked when Xiao Ying asked why he had told Bayor Jai that his name was Su Yunlan when he had introduced himself as Lai Tang. Bayor Jai and Xiao Ying hurried out of the tent as her sister was back and would see if she brought back any medicine that can help treat Xiao Ying's strange illness. The child looked behind and said goodbye to Su Yunlan, who asked him to bring a chicken drumstick the next time he visited. Su Yunlan wonders about the strange illness and feels a familiar aura that Xiao Ying has the aura of a demon, and believes that Xiao Ying may have demon blood flowing through him. He got intrigued and prepares the plan to escape. As Su Yunlan thinks of his plan, a sudden appearance of the strange woman behind him demands that he come out. Su Yunlan asks her what she was planning to do. Su Yunlan asks what is going on and why he needs to use them, as Su Yunlan wears handcuffs around his arms and neck. He humorously asks her if he needs to call her a mistress, which made the woman forcefully pull him in anger. Su Yunlan complains that he is being treated like a dog and that they have rights too. The woman asks if he has a complaint and points a scythe at his neck, causing Su Yunlan to quickly obey her and denies having a complaint. As they are going out into the tent, he notices that everyone there is a woman who looks at him with hostility and terrifying gazes. Also, he noticed the scars and condition of their injuries and concludes that it has a problem there. Suddenly, they stop, and the woman brings him to a pile of medicinal herbs, and Su Yunlan realizes that he doesn't recognize any of them. The woman kicks him into the pile of medicinal herbs, which made him unexpectedly curse and tasted the herb, which he said is bitter. She suddenly strikes a scythe to his neck and demands that he tell her about the uses and effects of the herbs, or else she'll kill him. Su Yunlan couldn't recognize any of the plants, but he remembered the heavenly scroll he had. He quickly looked up the herb's uses and found it in an instant. Later in the evening, Su Yunlan tells the woman, if he wasn't mistaken, that the uses of the medicinal herb are to expel demons, and he concluded that the child is indeed a demon. The woman shows a furious expression as she points the scythe to Su Yunlan's neck and demands to know if he knows what's going on with her younger brother. Su Yunlan asks if her brother had become bloodthirsty and tells her that it could be cured. He also stated that killing him might leave no one else to cure his brother. The woman realizes and puts the scythe away and asks how he will treat his brother. Su Yunlan guesses that the brother's illness has something to do with anemia, and offers to observe him closely and find more herbs to cure him. The woman gets his answer and instantly drags him away to the tent, causing Su Yunlan to feel helpless and desperate. Inside that tent, the woman throws Su Yunlan onto the bed. Su Yunlan was taken aback when he asked the woman what she planned to do. When he turned around, he finds her undressing, causing him to get flustered. Feeling overwhelmed, he asserted himself by declaring that he was the most responsible man in his family and would not let his wife down, even if it meant dying. As the woman suddenly walks towards him and slammed up against the bed, she asked him if he wanted to sleep and commanded him not to try to escape, leaving Su Yunlan feeling trapped and frustrated at the same time. The woman commands Su Yunlan to sleep, but he resists and cries out in protest. The next morning, Su Yunlan is seen awake and feels anxious as his body well tied to the chain. He was caught off guard by the woman who suddenly leaning on him. His subsequent thoughts about how close and fragrant the woman is, along with her attractive figure. But suddenly the woman caught Su Yunlan looking at her and instantly strangled him with the iron chain, warning him not to look at her. He apologized and denied seeing anything as he felt embarrassed. However, the woman orders him to get up, which he complies with while looking at her legs, which angers her and leads her to punch him again, and he denies his action once more. A moment later, Su Yunlan complains of being in pain from being strangled by an iron chain all night. The woman threatens to harm him if he tries anything again, but Su Yunlan responds with the promise to cure Xiao Ying, and if he fails, the woman can harm him. In the village, where Su Yunlan is picking herbs, Xiao Ying is looking at him. Xiao Ying asks Su Yunlan if he can cure his illness, and Su Yunlan confident responds that he can. On the other hand, he looks at his surrounding and most of the women find him scary and disgusted. Meanwhile, Su Yunlan thought about how the child has demon blood in his body and how the 9 nether soul technique is ineffective against him. He also thinks about why the woman in the village except Bayar seems more disgusted and fearful towards him than a demon. When Bayar suddenly pops out and asks if the medicines really make Xiao Ying better, he responds with a flustered look, assuring her that he will cure Xiao Ying. Su Yunlan was caught off guard when Bayar embraced him, causing him to feel uncomfortably awkward due to the pressure from her breasts. All of a sudden, they hear a scream from the village and rush back so fast that upon their return, they find a demon attacking, causing all the ladies in the village to feel tremble in fear. Su Yunlan is surprised to see a demon, while the strange woman is preventing the demon from attacking anyone. He asks why she's defending instead of fighting back as she did before. Then Bayar responds that the demon is Xiao Ying. Su Yunlan was shocked to discover that the demon was Xiao Ying. He was intrigued, having never heard of a child being able to transform into a demon. He tells Bayar to take the people to safety and leaves the task to him. He plans to use the 9 nether souls technique to handle the demon, despite Bayar's concerns for his safety. The strange woman was scratched by the demon's claws, causing her to drop her scythe and kneel in pain. Su Yunlan tells her she doesn't have to hold on, so she asks him what he's doing. Su Yunlan vows to protect Xiao Ying with determination, believing it is his responsibility as a man to protect others, rather than leave it to a woman. Su Yunlan then uses his technique to counter Xiao Ying's incoming attack. He now enters Xiao Ying's conscious world to try to wake him up, but a demon was inside of it and grabs him from behind, so he curses as the demon devours his soul. In Xiao Ying's consciousness, Su Yunlan began speaking about his soul being torn apart and trapped in hell. Su Yunlan felt like he was being devoured and wondered if this was the end. As he was lost in his thoughts, he longed to hear his father's voice once more and fulfill his promise to the princess to stay with her for the rest of his life and caress her soft lips. The memories of the date with his friends at the Long Song restaurant brought tears to his eyes, and he felt unwilling and reluctant to let them go. Suddenly, a bright light filled the room, and he saw the scroll release, recognizing it as the God Book. He wondered if he had been saved by the heavenly book again. He realized it was showing him the periodic table and was confused because it was on an ancient scroll he had bought at an auction house. His confusion only intensified when he noticed that only the symbol for iron, Phi, was blue light, as if tempting him to touch it. As Su Yunlan pressed the fee, he was forcefully sucked into it, and his soul returned to his body, out of Xiao Ying's consciousness. As he opened his eyes, Su Yunlan felt fascinated that heaven had not destroyed him. He was impressed by the toughness of the demon, yet confused by the gray mist on its body. His attention was drawn to the dust that gradually magnified, revealing elemental iron that fascinated him. Meanwhile, Bayar approached Xiao Ying to wake him up but ended up striking her instead. Su Yunlan stopped him from attacking and took control of his body, causing Xiao Ying to growl as Su Yunlan forcefully extracted him from the demon form. Bayar caught Xiao Ying as he fell, bringing her relief as he recovered. Su Yunlan fainted from the ordeal, but the strange woman caught him and smiled at him, admitting that she had underestimated his abilities. The next day, all the women in the village were happy, and Su Yunlan was seen sleeping in a tent. When he woke up from his dream, he mentioned the name Xiao Ying and asked how he was doing. You, the strange woman, responded that Xiao Ying was fine. Su Yunlan nodded and mentioned that his body hurt. Yu told him not to move in an aggressive tone. Su Yunlan looked at the food and asked if the woman was trying to feed him porridge. She responded with a shy nod, and Su Yunlan asked her what she was waiting for. Yu then ate the porridge herself and tried to feed Su Yunlan with her mouth. This made him panic, and he avoided her, asking what she was doing. He crossed his arms and told her to stay back, questioning who taught her to feed porridge like that. Yu responded, saying that it was taught by Sister Bayar, who said that Central Plains people are all fed this way when they get sick. Su Yunlan wished that Bayar had taught her better. He told Yu that he didn't want to eat yet and wanted to take a bath first as his body was sour and smelly. Instantly, Yu carried Su Yunlan, making him flustered and embarrassed at the same time. He told her to put him down and that it was a shame, but he secretly enjoyed the feeling of being carried. As he leaned on the woman's chest, he admitted that he really liked this kind of feeling. They arrived at Medicine Spring where Yu brought Su Yunlan to help heal his wounds. Su Yunlan asked her to let him down, but she carried him into the hot spring. He was shocked and got flustered when Yu's clothes got wet, making him look at her chest. Yu insisted on helping him take a bath and tried to undress him, which stunned him even more. Su Yunlan's consciousness had conflicting opinions on the situation. The good one reminded him that he was a married man and shouldn't take advantage of Yu, while the evil consciousness was trying to influence him to accept Yu's help, resulting in his inner struggle. However, Su Yunlan gently pushed Yu and decided to do it himself, and Yu demurely thanked him, which surprised him. Su Yunlan was flustered by Yu's charming side and noticed an injury on her arm. He remembered that Yu allowed her berserk brother to attack her so that she wouldn't hurt Xiao Ying, which made him wonder about her past. All the ladies suddenly appeared in the hot mountain spring and recognized Su Yunlan as the master who saved Xiao Ying. Su Yunlan was flustered from seeing all the women in the hot spring and offering him to bathe and massage him, which made him feel embarrassed and a bit overwhelmed by the attention. Later, the ladies bathed and massaged him, which made him enjoy and thank heaven for the third lifetime. At Black Cloud City, He Yan questioned Su Yunlan's whereabouts, who had been missing for 10 days. Lai Tang defended his brother-in-law, saying that he was powerful and should be fine. Huey, on the other hand, laughed hysterically at Su Yunlan's disappearance and boasted about controlling his father's Black Rider Legion. Later, Su Yunlan felt uncomfortable as the villagers gave him many fruits after saving Xiao Ying. Bayar told Su Yunlan how Yu rescued them from kidnapping and brought them to the village. This made him question how there could be a village of only women in the desert. Su Yunlan suspected that the reason the women in the village had sharp, suspicious eyes when he first met them was that they had been kidnapped. Bayar told him that many of their sisters were still in the hands of black men. Su Yunlan was furious and vowed to rescue them. He recalled overhearing Shuan Qi before and asked Bayar if she knew anything about the east of the desert. Bayar told him there was a small oasis in the east, but she hadn't investigated it because it was too far away. Su Yunlan believed this must be where the black men were holding the sisters and told Bayar to call Yu and Xiao Ying to the village. Su Yunlan thought that if he was right, there must be a stronghold nearby, and he would not spare Shuan Qi's life if he was connected to this. Su Yunlan, Yu, and Xiao Ying arrived at the stronghold and confirmed that it was a disguised military camp. He was ready for combat, but Su Yunlan stopped her, telling her that there were a lot of people inside. She responded by saying that they should just kill them all. Su Yunlan found it difficult to explain that they didn't know how many people were inside the stronghold or if there were any traps. He then asked Xiao Ying for his help, but Yu objected, saying that Xiao Ying was too weak. However, Xiao Ying insisted that he had grown up and didn't want to always hold his sister back. He reminded Yu that Xiao Ying was not that weak. Su Yunlan increased Xiao Ying's iron content, turning him into a demon general, and ordered him to distract the enemy in the stronghold. Xiao Ying rushed through the stronghold in a berserk state, scratching people with his claws. Some panicked, cursed, and were disturbed from their sleep, while others ordered to kill him. Meanwhile, Su Yunlan and Yu hid behind a big rock while observing Xiao Ying's destructive rampage. Su Yunlan concluded that this was the best way to control a demon. Su Yunlan and Yu entered the enemy stronghold, taking advantage of the chaos caused by Xiao Ying. As they were walking inside, Su Yunlan saw a carved name and realized that this had something to do with Mo Jiao and Xuan Qi. In the midst of the chaos, Yu spotted a covered cage and fiercely destroyed it with her scythe, revealing captive women inside. A child rushed to hug Yu, calling her sister Yu. Yu showed relief and called her Tang Tang. Inside the enemy stronghold, Su Yunlan asked Yu if they knew each other. Tang Tang noticed Su Yunlan and asked excitedly if he was her husband. She expressed concern that Yu might not find a husband. Su Yunlan was shocked and awkward when Tang Tang asked him if he was her husband. He questioned his financial situation and living arrangements. He then covered her mouth to stop her from talking, causing Yu to feel embarrassed as well. As they tried to escape, they suddenly spotted an enemy soldier nearby, causing them to stop. Tang Tang expressed her happiness at seeing her sister after a long time, thanking her for saving them, and complimenting Su Yunlan. She urged Yu not to let him go. Yu, on the other hand, urged Tang Tang to refrain from engaging in chatter and to keep moving. Tang Tang pulled out a stolen key from her time in jail and suggested they use it to bypass the men and sneak through the tunnels to make their way home. Su Yunlan confirmed that everyone had left the enemy base, and they should leave quickly. Tang Tang expressed her desire to see Xiao Ying but was teased by another lady about her lover boy, which made her feel embarrassed and run. Meanwhile, the man in black revealed that they had purposely given them the key to lure them out, as he was pleased with the success of his plan. But he suddenly ordered his comrade to shoot them. Yu stopped the incoming arrows while Su Yunlan instructed everyone to retreat to a sheltered area. Yu realized that she had been hit by a poisoned arrow and was struggling to move. Tang Tang bit Su Yunlan's finger to escape his grip and ran towards Yu, despite Yu's attempts to stop her. Unfortunately, Tang Tang was hit by multiple arrows in her back. Yu caught Tang Tang's falling body after she was hit by an arrow, leaving Yu stunned and shocked. She let out an angry scream. Su Yunlan expressed shock and anger at the fact that they targeted such a small child. Tang Tang coughed up blood and requested that Yu not cry. She gave something to Yu for Xiao Ying and remembered the time when she wanted to play the flute with Xiao Ying. The men in black approached and expressed dismay for using poisoned arrows on a child. They then decided to capture the only beautiful woman in wild clothing. Su Yunlan cursed the men in black as worse than beasts. The leader ordered his men to capture Su Yunlan as well, saying that he would be in for a beating tonight. However, Su Yunlan laughed and declared that he would make the men in black pay for their sins. With rage in his eyes, he challenged them to come and pay their respects to the soul of the person who died in their claws. In the enemy stronghold, men laughed and made derogatory remarks about Consort Su, mocking him for hanging out with a bunch of women. Su Yunlan confronted the head of the men in black, identifying him as a henchman of Xuan Qi, and threatened to report him to Father Mazan. The henchman laughed at his threat and ordered his men to attack. Surrounded by the men in black, Su Yunlan activated his iron technique to observe the henchman's blade and determine its composition. He realized he could control the blade if he got close enough. The henchman taunted him, calling him a loser who didn't know martial arts, and prepared to attack, yelling at him to die. As the henchman abruptly lunged at Su Yunlan with his blade, to everyone's shock and disbelief, the henchman himself appeared bewildered by the fact that his sword was pierced through his body. Su Yunlan announced that he was the first to die and that everyone else would follow. He then slashed them one by one, calling them straw-running animals and promising to make them taste despair. After a while, one man left in the enemy stronghold pleaded for mercy, claiming that he had been tricked into attacking him and didn't want to be involved. The man trembled and peed himself in fear. Su Yunlan offered him an escape, but mercilessly impaled him with his sword so he wouldn't let him get away. Su Yunlan displayed anger and a sense of justice as he questioned the man's plea for mercy, implying that the man had not considered the consequences of their actions. As Su Yunlan sensed Ying's escape, his worry grew about a larger troop's arrival. Yu's health concerned him, and he knew her injury could not be delayed any longer. He urgently tried to awaken her, wondering if the effect of the poison was to blame for her unresponsiveness. He told her that if she didn't wake up, Xiao Ying would die, and everyone there would die. Yu's response was emotional, telling him that Xiao Ying couldn't die and neither could he, to which Su Yunlan responded with a grunt and ordered them to leave. As they left, they set fire to the enemy stronghold and walked away, with Yu carrying Tang Tang's body. Su Yunlan glanced back, pondering the hidden shadows in the depths. As the group mourned the death of Tang Tang, Xiao Ying placed his flute on his chest and gazed at the grave. Bayar approached Yu, calling out her name with concern, as the poison was affecting her and she was nearly fainting. Bayar helped Yu back to her room. Inside the tent, Yu lay on the bed, clearly in pain from the poison. Both Su Yunlan and Bayar sat in silence. Su Yunlan expressed confusion and wonder at Yu's unexpected strength and resilience, wondering what kind of past experiences she had been through before. Bayar let out a sigh and responded that Yu had been quietly carrying the burden of her past alone without anyone else's knowledge about it. Bayar began to recount the story of their siblings' past, starting with a reunion festival that marked the beginning of their shared journey. Back at the time of the reunion festival, when Yu was still a child, she approached the village head, thanking him for his care and presenting a gift from her father. The village head expressed gratitude and thanks. Suddenly, a person interrupted them, showing a bag with 3 blood skulls. The village head recognized it as a danger and ordered everyone to run away. Yu was told to take her brother and hide, and they quickly ran away as people in the village were fleeing from the incoming danger. As they hid, they witnessed demons attacking people, causing Xiao Ying to cry out in fear for their father and the village head. Yu gestured at him to be quiet, but the men in black heard them and turned towards them. The men in black caught them and ordered their men to throw Yu to the demons while taking Xiao Ying away. They forcefully separated the two, with Yu being thrown to the demons and given a scythe. The man instructed her to survive if she wanted revenge. Bayar explained that Yu lost all her family members that night and lost all human emotions as a result. It took her 6 years to find Xiao Ying sleeping in an ice pool at an abandoned base of the man in black. Yu apologized to Xiao Ying for being late and suggested they go home. As Su Yunlan wonders about the blood and tears skull and the half-human, half-skeleton Ning Yu and Ju symbols, he wonders if he's seen them before. He asks Bayar for permission to take care of Yu, and Bayar agrees excitedly. As she left the tent, Bayar looked back at them. Su Yunlan shows empathy and understanding toward Yu's sense of responsibility and guilt for those she wants to protect, while also criticizing her need to rely on others. Yu shows reluctance to let Su Yunlan go, while Su Yunlan promises to seek justice by rooting out the organizations and making them pay with their blood. Meanwhile, in the Black Cloud Mountain, Minister Lu Mang reports to the Demon Lord that Su Yunlan appeared in the eastern part of the desert. The Demon Lord throws a tag and orders him to save Su Yunlan. In the secret village, Yu wakes up and steps out of her tent, where she meets Bayar. Bayar greets Yu and asks how she is feeling. Yu thanks Bayar for taking care of her, but Bayar defers the credit to Su Yunlan, who had been taking care of Yu and keeping the village in order. Bayar shows Yu Su Yunlan's latest invention, carts that can carry goods in the desert with ease, making life easier for everyone in the village. Yu asks Bayar to gather everyone, and she announces her gratitude to Su Yunlan for rescuing imprisoned sisters and providing tools and knowledge for the village survival in the desert, which everyone agrees with. She then declares Su Yunlan the new leader of the village, which elicits cheers and declarations of support from the villagers, and he accepts the offer. He thinks about the hardships that the villagers have endured and declares his name to help fight against their enemies and lead in creating a new home for them. Su Yunlan plans to uncover the conspiracy behind Xuan Qi and write to his wife to ask her to include these girls in her army. In the enemy stronghold, Su Yunlan fights with his new skills, demonstrating the effectiveness of Yu's teachings as he dodges attacks. Su Yunlan retaliates against his opponent by burning their face with a torch, causing them to scream in agony before ending their life with Yu's scythe. He demands the captives come out of the cell and proudly tells them to call him gracious. However, the ladies are intimidated by his presence and hesitate to move. Yu then pushes Su Yunlan forward and assures the captives that they are there to save them. The ladies are overjoyed at the prospect of finally leaving the ghostly place. As they rush out of the cell, they stampede over Su Yunlan, who is left bewildered by their excitement. As they return to Junhu village, Su Yunlan is seen making something when Yu throws an apple to him, which he catches and thanks her. She asks him why he is having everyone transport so much yellow dung. Su Yunlan replies with a mischievous smile, telling her it's a secret and that she will find out later. He urges everyone to get back to work, stating that he must finish a big project today. Yu asks what the project is. Later, Su Yunlan called out for someone to bring the last few fine wood and iron blocks that he had made. He used his carpentry technique to build a house and exclaimed with excitement that these women wouldn't have to live in leaky tents anymore. The ladies in the village expressed their appreciation and thanked him. Su Yunlan thought to himself that he hoped this was a good start. Bayar complimented Su Yunlan's work and offered him coconut milk. Su Yunlan was surprised and flustered, humorously wondering if it was a century-old brand as he looked towards her breasts. Meanwhile, in Black Cloud Mountain, Qi was angry that Su Yunlan had not only survived but had also destroyed many of his strongholds. Qi ordered his servant to send someone to kill Su Yunlan. But another servant came in and said that someone wanted to see him. It turned out to be the man in black from Yu's past. At the oasis, Bayar told the other ladies that she was going to pick up an herb. One of the ladies asked about the herb's sweet smell, and Bayar explained that she wasn't sure what it was. She mentioned that Su Yunlan had talked about a drink called Coke that was brown and sweet, and she thought the herb had a similar color and taste. She planned to take it home and see if she could make Coke. The ladies praised Bayar's kindness and suggested making a delicious meal for Su Yunlan and the others who had gone to investigate the Black Rider and were likely tired when they returned. As it started to get darker, Bayar let out a scream that startled the other ladies. She showed them 3 blood skulls that she had found while gathering herbs. Back in the village, Su Yunlan noticed everyone's distress and asked what was wrong. Yu showed him the blood skulls and explained that they were the mark left by the men in black who had slaughtered their village. Su Yunlan recognized the symbol and thought he had seen it before in his previous life. He asked Bayar where she had found them. Bayar told him that she had found them not far to the east, and another lady mentioned that there were black riders appearing in the desert. Yu recalled the legend of the Black Rider of the Devil, who brought a curse of death upon those who saw him. Su Yunlan wondered if his father knew about what had happened in the desert and couldn't shake off a bad feeling. As night falls, Yu urgently instructs someone to call Xiao Ying because they need to see something immediately. Bayar questions whether they should still go, as it is late and they haven't had dinner yet. Su Yunlan reassures Bayar to trust Yu and humorously describes Yu as someone even demons are afraid of. Then Bayar tells them to come back quickly and expresses concern for them as Su Yunlan and Yu leave, while Bayar stays behind. Before they leave, Bayar thanks Su Yunlan, but Su Yunlan doesn't understand why. Bayar insists on thanking him, and Su Yunlan says they will talk about it later. Bayar mutters about her cold Coke, but she is interrupted by someone reporting a problem with the food storage. They both rush to the barn, which makes Bayar drop her Coke and contemplate getting it. However, she chooses to investigate the issue first. In the barn, the lady shows Bayar a storage box containing blood skulls, which surprises her. Bayar identifies them as their food boxes and realizes that they have been contaminated with blood skulls. The men in black are seen looking at the village from afar. On the other side, Su Yunlan, Yu, and Xiao Ying encounter something like a sandstorm. Yu confirms that it isn't a sandstorm and there is a bloody smell in the wind. Su Yunlan, Yu, and Xiao Ying are then confronted by Yehu, the head of the Black Riders. They have been ordered to bring Su Yunlan back to Black Cloud City by Lord Mazan, the Demon Lord. When an explosion from the village causes panic and frustration, they instantly run back to the village. However, they are blocked by the Black Riders, and Yehu insists on taking Su Yunlan with them. Despite Su Yunlan's insistence that they need to save lives, Yehu remains firm in his mission to take Su Yunlan back. The situation escalates into a battle between the Black Riders and Su Yunlan's group. Yu fights them as she strikes an attack that is instantly dodged by the Black Riders. Yehu warns that except Su Yunlan, all who resist will be killed without mercy. Yu and Xiao Ying rush to attack the Black Riders but are immediately injured. As Su Yunlan realizes they are outmatched by the strength of the Black Rider Legion, Yu makes a brave decision to risk her life to go back into the village. But Yehu is determined to stop her, and tensions rise. As Yehu charges with his lances towards Yu, Su Yunlan frantically begs him to stop. Suddenly, a sword appears out of nowhere and intercepts Yehu's attack, causing him to become enraged. Su Yunlan sees Yuan Ying's image in the distance as the sword returns to its owner. Yuan Ying jumps off the cliff and attacks General Yehu, who avoids her strikes and yells for her to stop. Yu admires her strong aura. Yuan Ying swings and points her sword at General Yehu, declaring her intention to take him down and asking who dared to stop her. Su Yunlan thinks that the Black Cavalry wouldn't dare to harm the princess. Yehu remains silent as they walk away. Su Yunlan calls out Yuan Ying's name, but she interrupts him and supports him, stunned. She urges everyone to save the people in the village. They return to the village and are all surprised by the damage from the explosion. Su Yunlan commands them to rush to save the people if they can. Yu, on the other hand, calls out her sister Bayar's name, believing that she was smart enough to hide. Su Yunlan searches for survivors but finds none. In a nearby area, they hear Bayar's voice suddenly call out for Master Su. They rush to her side as she is badly injured. Su Yunlan clenches his fists, Yuan Ying feels remorseful, and Su Yunlan cries and murmurs that they were still too late. Bayar coughs up blood, and Yu tries to heal her, but she stops her from using her powers. She then calls Su Yunlan, gives him a tag, and tells him not to blame himself and to take care of Yu. She passes away, and everyone shouts her name in grief. Yu, on the other hand, cannot accept her death. The next day, in Black Cloud City, Yuan Ying tends to Su Yunlan's bandage and expresses her surprise at hearing of his recent disappearance and the events that had transpired in just half a month. Su Yunlan clenches the jade pendant and is determined to find the mastermind behind everything that had happened. Yuan Ying notices the jade pendant that belonged to her seventh brother, which leads them to wonder if he had deliberately entangled Yuan Ying in the capital. Su Yunlan suspects that there are capital crimes involved, including human trafficking, demon experimentation, and privately raising an army. He thinks that all of these are capital crimes and wonders why they eagerly want to kill them all. Suddenly, law enforcement officers from Black Cloud City arrive and accuse Su Yunlan of being a rebel. Su Yunlan shows disbelief at the accusation. Yuan Ying was surprised to see strangers trespassing on her husband's residence and demanded to know who they were. The law enforcement officer identified himself and stated that Su Yunlan, the emperor's son-in-law, had colluded with desert bandits to destroy Tang's military strongholds in the desert. He asked if this was not an act of rebellion. Su Yunlan demanded to see the evidence and thought that Xuan Kui might be trying to frame him. The law enforcement officer showed the evidence, and the person they brought in immediately pointed at Su Yunlan and accused him of killing all his brothers. The person urged the law enforcement officer to take down Su Yunlan and two of his partners, who were described as terrifying. The officer smirked and dragged Yu and Xiao Ying in. Su Yunlan realized that they had controlled both Yu and Xiao Ying. He gritted his teeth as he faced the officer, who accused him of quibbling. Su Yunlan argued that soldiers could identify him and his partners, but the officer was contemptuous of his claims. The officer then produced evidence found in the destroyed stronghold, a jade pendant that Su Yunlan had lost during his mission. Su Yunlan realized his mistake and admitted defeat. Yuan Ying was left speechless as the law enforcement officer took Su Yunlan away. A moment later, Yuan Ying barged in and confronted Xuan Kui, accusing him of capturing the consort and running a human trafficking business in the desert. Kui denied the accusations and claimed ignorance. He smirked and mentioned that he had heard about Su Yunlan leading a group of stragglers in the desert, but all of them were dead. Yuan Ying thought to herself how vicious Xuan Kui was, having slaughtered an entire village without leaving any survivors. Kui proposed a solution to save Su Yunlan, but Yuan Ying was skeptical and asked for clarification. Kui suggested that Su Yunlan should participate in the annual death penalty pardon tournament in Black Cloud City. This competition allows prisoners sentenced to death to compete for the top spot and be pardoned for their crimes. However, Kui remarked and mocked that Su Yunlan was useless and didn't know how to fight and that he would probably die at the hands of other prisoners. In a fit of anger, Yuan Ying hit the cup of drink that Kui was holding and warned him that if anything happened to Su Yunlan, he would be like the broken cup. Kui was left speechless. 3 days passed, and they arrived at the arena, where Yuan Ying and Xuan Kui had notable seats. Kui had a sinister thought about Su Yunlan, believing that he didn't have to kill him personally, as any random death row inmate would do it for him. Kui then announced that the day marked the death penalty tournament, where contestants would be considered a failure if they surrendered or fell out of the ring, regardless of life or death. The final winner would have the opportunity to compete with a young master and would only qualify for pardon by surpassing him. As the tournament was about to begin, the host announced the arrival of the Demon Lord, Mazan, which made Xuan Kui nervous about his presence. The sky formed a smoke and a light came that struck through behind their seats, and Demon Lord Mazan appeared. Yuan Ying and Xuan Kui knelt to greet him. Demon Lord Mazan announced that the winner of the tournament, regardless of whether they were a member of the Mazan family or not, would obtain the right to transfer the Black Cavalry. The crowd erupted with excitement and cheers at the prospect of winning the coveted prize. In the arena, where the crowds are hysterically laughing, Su Yunlan expressed his interest. From afar, he looked to his father and mentioned that he had a 20% chance before announcing something. Feeling half dead, he declared that he would do it by himself this time. Curiously, Yu asked if he would really do it by himself this time. Su Yunlan just smiled at her and replied that they should calm themselves and heal their wounds while he handles it. Although Yu tried to protest, Su Yunlan explained that she had been relying on instinct and that her strength would be greatly reduced against an opponent who has practiced martial arts with rules and regulations. Additionally, Su Yunlan noted that revealing their demonic forms in front of the public could be dangerous. He assured them that he was not weak, despite the strength of the death row inmates being generally low. Although his internal strength was only at the end of the lower grade, his iron technique could be unaffected by different internal strengths. He promised to take care of everyone and win the fight, then walked to the ring, telling them to wait for him there. As the crowd yelled and mocked Su Yunlan, claiming that he didn't know any martial arts, they speculated that he had come there to meet his death. Others showed pity for the princess for marrying a loser like him. The crowds grew excited, realizing that his first opponent was a big boxer with a build that could easily kill Su Yunlan. Huey grinned, thinking that Su Yunlan's anniversary death would be next year today. Meanwhile, Lai Tang asked his sister if his brother-in-law could really win. Yuan Ying told him to trust Su Yunlan. Determined, Su Yunlan thought that he must bear the weight of his opponent before he could wear his crown. The big warrior approached him and teasingly called him his good boyfriend. Su Yunlan was confused and didn't recognize him. But the warrior revealed that he had tried to take his life before and was sent to death row by his master Xuan Qi. Still not remembering him, Su Yunlan shrugged it off and told him to focus on the fight. The eager crowd urged them to start and told Su Yunlan to pick a weapon and start fighting so it would be over quickly. The warrior mocked him for his lack of martial arts skills, and the crowd called for Su Yunlan to be killed. Finally, the referee started the game. The big warrior approached Su Yunlan to strike a punch, cursing at him and threatening him to die while charging. However, Su Yunlan didn't move and instead used his iron technique to grab the big warrior's necklace, causing him to choke. Surprised and struggling to breathe, the big warrior asked Su Yunlan what he had done. Su Yunlan laughed and mocked him, calling him a stupid maniac for fighting with a metal necklace. He then declared that the big warrior's destiny was death, and, after a second, the big warrior's head was cut off, shocking the crowd. The people in the crowd expressed their amazement and disbelief at the evil technique Su Yunlan had used. They also discussed how they had underestimated him and how he had been called a loser for killing the top grade. Some people commented that they feared Su Yunlan and that he was not invincible. Nevertheless, Lai Tang and Yuan Ying praised Su Yunlan's skills, and Minister Lu Mang asked if the Lord knew what kind of mystery was behind Su Yunlan's technique. The demon Lord Ma Zhen showed interest and encouraged them to keep watching. Finally, the referee announced that Su Yunlan was the winner of the first match. Su Yunlan smirked and taunted his next opponent, Xuan Qi, by pointing at him and telling him that the big boxer he had just defeated was merely an appetizer. He confidently stated that it was now time to move on to the main course. At first, Su Yunlan was shouting for Xuan Qi to come down, threatening to blow his head. In response, Qi was confused by the statement and accused Su Yunlan of taking the initiative with a young man. Suddenly, the referee interrupted and called out to Su Yunlan, telling him to return to the contests. Reluctantly, Su Yunlan looked to the referee and announced the new participant named Black Cloud. Flower Sun Tu was introduced. Confidently, Sun Tu made a grand entrance, taunting Su Yunlan and warning him not to fall for his charms. Visibly irritated by Sun Tu's behavior, Su Yunlan threw a knife at Sun Tu, but Sun Tu just easily dodged it. Feeling frustrated, Su Yunlan threatened to kill him. But Sun Tu calmly explained that he had already analyzed his attack and its range and knew how to avoid it. Impressively, he revealed that he had noticed Su Yunlan manipulating an iron necklace earlier in the contest, and used that information to predict his attack range. Reflecting on the situation, Su Yunlan thought about the contestants in the competition and acknowledged that they were all highly skilled. Turning to his opponent, Sun Tu then spoke to him, saying that it was his turn to shoot. Swiftly, Su Yunlan dodged it. Unexpectedly, the dart was thrown at one of the audience members, causing a commotion. At that moment, Su Yunlan realized that the wooden dart Sun Tu was using showcased the depth of his inner strength. With a smirk, Sun Tu then taunted Su Yunlan, calling him a baby who is pretty quick to dodge. Angrily, Su Yunlan responded, threatening to kill him once more. Sun Tu was furious when Su Yunlan called him a coward. Consequently, he threw a baby dart at Su Yunlan, who skillfully repelled the attacks. Su Yunlan remarked that Sun Tu was courting death and wondered aloud how many daggers he had hidden on his person. Determined, Sun Tu pursued Su Yunlan relentlessly, while Su Yunlan ran and continued to repel his attacks. However, Su Yunlan almost lost his balance when he repelled an attack that pushed him to the edge of the ring. Seizing the opportunity, Sun Tu attacked Su Yunlan, who cursed as his arms were struck by the dart. On the sidelines, Yun Ying and Lai Tang were both worried and nervous. The tension could be felt among the crowd watching the fight, with some cheering for Sun Tu, while others predicted the end of the battle. Injured, Su Yunlan noticed the poor quality of the ring and thought of a plan. Boldly, he leaped to attack Sun Tu, but Sun Tu dodged his moves with ease and taunted him for his lack of strength. Undeterred, Su Yunlan tried to attack him again with the sword, but Sun Tu still managed to dodge it and mocked him. Resolute, Su Yunlan used his iron technique to control the sword and attacked Sun Tu once more, yet he still managed to dodge it. Sun Tu jeered at Su Yunlan for his weakness, and Su Yunlan prepared to use his final move. However, as Su Yunlan's last attack pierced the ring, Sun Tu derided him for his lack of strength and claimed that his final swords didn't stand a chance. Cutie smiled and questioned Su Yunlan's final blow, while the crowds eagerly anticipated Su Yunlan's demise. Unexpectedly, the arena's ring collapsed, causing Sun Tu to fall outside the ring. Cleverly, Su Yunlan appealed to the referee for a decision. The referee then declared Su Yunlan as the winner. Qiyu was taken aback by the outcome, while Lai Tang praised his brother-in-law for his victory. Angry, Sun Tu accused Su Yunlan of intentionally destroying the foundation of the platform to make him fall out of the ring and criticized his weak appearance. In response, Su Yunlan mocked Sun Tu, saying that God had given him an ugly appearance but a sharp mind. Infuriated, Sun Tu attempted to strike Su Yunlan. However, Demon Lord Ma Zhen intervened from afar and stomped on Sun Tu's body with his ki, stopping him in his tracks. Su Yunlan marveled at Ma Zhen's powerful devil ki, while Ma Zhen sternly warned that those who did not follow the rules would meet the same fate as Sun Tu. Su Yunlan praises his father's strength, acknowledging that he is more powerful and ruthless than ever before. Consequently, as he stands in the arena, a large, formidable man named Tai Bushan emerges behind him, causing the entire crowd to gasp in surprise. In that moment, Su Yunlan deduces that Tai Bushan is probably his final opponent before he can confront Xuan Qi, the individual he plans to kill. Subsequently, the referee declares that the victor between Tai Bushan and Su Yunlan will earn the opportunity to compete against Xuan Qi. Tai Bushan then remarks that he has heard that Su Yunlan is a Ma Zhen young master as well, but points out that there is a significant difference between their situations. Moreover, he adds that if he kills Su Yunlan, he will also kill Xuan Qi. Realizing that he must fight with his bare hands since the weapon house is empty, Su Yunlan braces himself. As Tai Bushan initiates the attack with his hands ablaze, Su Yunlan manages to block it, but is still thrown into the corner stand, feeling an impact that makes him cough up blood. Yun Ying, concerned for Su Yunlan's safety, observes that he is at a disadvantage without his iron weapon and has become a low-grade warrior. Meanwhile, Su Yunlan's internal strength is depleted, and he ponders his next move. Suddenly, he spots Yun Ying's pet in the distance and comes up with an idea. At that point, Ying Ying the squirrel scurries toward the arena ring. Tai Bushan assumes Su Yunlan is losing consciousness and talking to himself, so he smashes Su Yunlan's head into the ground. However, Su Yunlan quickly recovers and stands up, managing to withstand Tai Bushan's head blow attack without feeling any impact. Unfazed, Su Yunlan teases Tai Bushan for tickling him, while Tai Bushan taunts him back, asking if he is begging to die, but promises to ensure a slow and sorrowful death. Tai Bushan launches another attack, but Su Yunlan blocks it, calling him Baldy and daring him to kill him if he so desires. Nevertheless, Tai Bushan does not seem eager to oblige and instead hints that he has more tricks up his sleeve. In the meantime, Lu Shu asks Minister Lu Meng for approval if he chooses not to intervene. Minister Lu Meng replies that he shouldn't bother. Lu Shu believes that the second young master is a good person, but sadly, he cannot offer any assistance. Yun Ying notices her pet in the ring, and Su Yunlan smirks before activating his 9 nether souls. Suddenly, the sky transforms, creating confusion among the spectators. Tai Bushan questions the change in the sky, and someone in the crowd suggests it is a flock of desert eagles, which leads to further queries from others about how so many eagles could have gathered there. The eagles then assault Bushan, inflicting damage to his eyes. Bushan curses and shrieks in pain, while Su Yunlan comments on the power of his desert eagle compared to Bushan's top-grade weapon. Su Yunlan discloses that he has identified Bushan's weakness and delivers a kick to his family jewel, causing Bushan to scream and convulse in pain. The crowd is taken aback, and they cover their own family jewels in sympathy for Tai Bushan. Lai Tang notices He Yan's reaction and inquires why he is pinching his legs. As Tai Bushan continues to wail in agony, Su Yunlan pushes him out of the ring. Su Yunlan expresses his gratitude to the squirrel for helping him attract the eagles and then looks at Qi in the distance, conveying his intention to take his life. The crowd, now energized, begins to cheer for Su Yunlan, repeatedly chanting his name. The crowds are amazed and thrilled by Su Yunlan's performance. In contrast, Qi wonders how Su Yunlan managed to defeat Tai Bushan, despite the latter's increased power even after 30 years of imprisonment. Qi also acknowledges that he is no match for Tai Bushan, but Su Yunlan had managed to defeat him nonetheless. Su Yunlan looks at Qi and teasingly asks if he is still watching the show. Feeling frustrated, Qi wonders if there might be something else hidden. Meanwhile, the crowds notice Qi and begin to cheer for him as the young master of the Mazan. Qi shows frustration as he thinks about how he must find a way to defeat Su Yunlan since he is no match for him. Determined, Qi jumps into the arena ring to face Su Yunlan, and some members of the crowd cheer for him to beat Su Yunlan. Some people say that the Odano young master of the demon cult acts and plans to dispatch the Black Rider Forest after winning the competition. Enraged, Qi tells the loud crowd to shut up. However, the crowd feels delighted and cheers Qi on, believing that Qi was thinking about how Su Yunlan would die. Qi is even more annoyed that they're making a fuss about the fight with Su Yunlan. Su Yunlan thinks that Qi is a coward and obsessed with the female sex. He also believes that Qi's young energy has been exhausted, and he can no longer practice the strong and fierce techniques of the demon cult. Qi then greets Su Yunlan and tells him that he did not expect him to make it this far. Su Yunlan smiles and asks Qi to cut the crap and get to the point. Qi fake laughs as he stops Su Yunlan from walking towards him and tells him that his body is already scarred, and it's not honorable for him as a demon cult master to kill him as easily as his palm. Su Yunlan remains unfazed by Qi's words, and then Qi suggests a match of the art of war to take advantage of Su Yunlan's weakness to win. Su Yunlan agrees to the match and asks Qi how he wants to compare. Qi calls the Khan on an elevated stand, and some people come out of the room. After an hour, Su Yunlan thinks that the platform looks like it was from a TV drama. Qi explains that they are there for an embroidery ring specially designed for the Book of War. Su Yunlan, however, appears to have some knowledge about it and comments that the game is merely about sending someone to climb a tower, capture the hydrangea, and beat the gong. Qi feels embarrassed but decides to explain the rules anyway. He then explains that each side picks 4 inmates on the scene to form a team. One side will compete for the bouquet of flowers on the platform, and the final dinging of the gong will determine the winner. Inmates step forward to work for Qi, and he is carefree with the strong inmates he has on his side. Su Yunlan, on the other hand, is left with unimpressive inmates to form a team. Another team on the platform mocks them by saying that all things and people are alike, and trash is worthy of trash. Undeterred, Su Yunlan approaches and shows his charisma to the unimpressive inmates, asking them if they want to leave this ghostly place with him, and they all agree. He then tells them to follow his lead. The referee announces the start of the game, and subsequently, the team members take their positions. The gongmen, who made the starting sound, were exhausted and fell asleep beside the gong. As a result, the crowd begins laughing and mocks Su Yunlan's strategy of daydreaming. However, Su Yunlan remains confident and promises to show everyone what a win is later on. The two teams initiate their climb of the platform, with some inmates playfully making fun of each other's abilities. Meanwhile, one of Su Yunlan's team members, the old cripple, swiftly rushes behind the wood elevated shelf and pokes the toes of Qi's teammates, causing them to fall. Infuriated, Qi orders one of his team members to beat the old cripple, while the rest continue to climb up to the top of the platform. The old cripple is spotted by Qi's teammate and quickly runs away from him, while other inmates in the distance observe the scene and comment that they were acting foolishly. Amidst the chaos, the hefty inmate of Su Yunlan farts in the face of one of Qi's team members, provoking them to curse and call it a biochemical weapon. Just half an hour ago, Su Yunlan had asked the fatty inmate what he's best at, to which fatty inmate responded with a boast about his potent flatulence. Su Yunlan, in turn, expresses his regret at the response. Returning to the competition, fatty inmate warns Qi's teammate that misfortune is coming his way. The teammate of Qi is seen reaching for the other wood to climb, but fatty inmate suddenly jumps and sits on his face, causing the three of them to tumble down. Su-Yun-Lan praises fatty inmate for being a valuable asset since only one person is left on QE's team. QE questions Su-Yun-Lan's tactics, but Su-Yun-Lan reveals that it was actually a clever, middle-grade move. The teammate of QE finally manages to reach the top of the elevated shelf, only to be surprised by the dwarf inmate already there. Su-Yun-Lan discloses that the dwarf had been hiding under fatty inmate's clothes, which is why he had such a hard time climbing. The dwarf inmate secures the ball at the top, but it accidentally falls from the Gong Man's tummy where he was sleeping. The Gong Man awakens irritable, and in his anger he smacks the gong, signaling the end of the game. This unexpected sound leaves the crowds questioning the legitimacy of the gong. Ultimately, the referee declares Su-Yun-Lan the winner, and QE is left contemplating how the game had been played. QE appeared visibly stunned and could hardly believe what had just transpired. Consequently, he accused Su-Yun-Lan of cheating, asserting that it was merely a coincidence, not a true victory. In response, Su-Yun-Lan retorted with a biting comment, labeling QE as a demon cult young master capable of twisting the truth. Moreover, he accused him of turning human trafficking and the ruthless killing of innocent girls into a valiant battle against bandits. The crowd, taken aback by this revelation, reacted with shock, as did QE. It crossed QE's mind that Su-Yun-Lan was attempting character assassination with the words he uttered in front of everyone. Feeling outraged, QE vehemently denied everything Su-Yun-Lan had said. He then turned to his father Mazan, imploring him to be aware of Su-Yun-Lan's ludicrous claims. At this point, He-Yan interjected, stating that it was not up to QE to decide whether or not to believe the accusations. This intervention left QE gasping in surprise. Suddenly, He-Yan, Lai Tang, and the royal guards appeared alongside captured individuals, including a young girl whom Lai Tang held protectively. The captives cried out and begged QE to rescue them. Without delay, He-Yan leaped into the ring and inquired if he was late. Su-Yun-Lan replied that he had arrived just in time. He-Yan then presented letters discovered in Xuan QE's mansion, all of which pertained to human trafficking in the desert. He also asserted that the demon cult had identified the handwriting as QE's. Furthermore, He-Yan claimed that QE had concealed the kidnapped girl within a hidden compartment in his mansion's back wall. The crowd reacted with shock and disbelief, and some prisoners even threatened QE, questioning if he had truly abused underage girls. QE asked Su-Yun-Lan how he had gained knowledge of his mansion. Su-Yun-Lan responded by suggesting that QE was actually referring to the fact that he knew someone was hidden in the mansion. Su-Yun-Lan also divulged that He-Yan had ample time to search the mansion due to a temporary change in the tournament's rules. Subsequently, he hinted that he might have encountered QE's secret visitor in the past during a failed mission. This revelation sparked a commotion in the crowd, with some attendees wondering if the young master was impotent. QE denied the allegations and pleaded with his father to believe him, while Su-Yun-Lan challenged him and offered to have his father investigate the matter to prove his innocence, even swearing a vow to be struck by lightning. Growing increasingly anxious, QE realized that he might be in trouble if his father intervened. Finally, QE confessed to his misdeeds, attributing them to the coercion of deceitful men. Su-Yun-Lan surmised that there might be a mastermind orchestrating the entire scheme. However, Yuan Ying suddenly yelled a warning to Su-Yun-Lan, and in an instant, an attacker appeared and decapitated Xuan QE. Enraged, Demon Lord Mazan used his key to teleport into the ring arena, demanding to know who had the audacity to kill people at will in his presence. Later, in the imperial capital, Su-Yun-Lan expressed his happiness at being home. Moreover, he then asks old He who He-Yan is and remarks on the strange looks they are receiving from the people of the capital. He-Yan responds that a radiant person like him is used to that kind of attention. Meanwhile, Lai Tang thought of a romantic scene between him and He-Yan, and he chimed in with a playful comment. Yuan Ying then told Su-Yun-Lan that she needs to take Yuan Ying to the military headquarters and instructed him to return to the house first. Agreeing to meet her there later, Su-Yun-Lan watches as the cart pulls away to the princess house. Simultaneously, someone is seen watching them from afar and remarks that their opportunity has arrived. In the princess's mansion, Lai Tang is helping He-Yan out of the cart. Observing this, Su-Yun-Lan shakes his head off at the two that are getting philosophical with each other. Additionally, Su-Yun-Lan then remembers the jade pendant he dropped and went to search for it back in the cart. However, as he finds it, he gets a surprise, a sudden kidnapping that drags him away. The kidnapper is pleased to have caught Su-Yun-Lan, and one of the kidnappers urges them to run quickly. Attempting to negotiate, Su-Yun Lan tries to reason out with the kidnapper, offering to talk about what they need if they let him go. In an unknown area, Su-Yun Lan struggles to free himself from his kidnappers. When they finally release him from the sack, he yelled his own name with anger, only to be surprised once again to find many people cheering and showing their support for him. Subsequently, a person approaches him and praises his beauty, writing ability, and his invisible charm. They go on to call him the Maiden's guardian angel, who has saved countless girls from traffickers. Caught in an awkward situation, Su-Yun Lan tries to downplay his accomplishments, telling the person not to exaggerate them. Nonetheless, the person is ecstatic to have met Su-Yun Lan in person and touches his hand in excitement, declaring that he will never wash it again. Perplexed, Su-Yun Lan is taken aback by the sudden attention and admiration he is receiving, realizing that he has become a national idol. Meanwhile, at the Dong house, an angry old woman taps fiercely on the table, frustrated that her family member doesn't understand the 3 obediences and 4 virtues. She demands the servant to go, and the servant quickly agrees. In an unknown location, a lady is saying goodbye to Su-Yun Lan. As she bids him farewell, another woman advises him to take care. Reflecting on his past life, Su-Yun Lan thought about how popular idols were and how cool they must have been. Suddenly, a group of men, hidden in the bushes, seemed to be waiting for Su-Yun Lan. One of them announced that he had his bags ready. As they blocked Su-Yun Lan's path, he appeared confident and amused, assuming that they were his passionate fans. However, the men exchanged a glance before effortlessly putting Su-Yun Lan into a sack. Later, in the Dong mansion, Su-Yun Lan found himself in a stately home and assumed that his fans were trying to play hide and seek with him. An old woman approached and asked if he was Su-Yun Lan, but he denied it. Instead, he claimed and boasted to be the patron saint of maidens and mothers-in-law. This response, however, irritated the elderly woman. To appease her, Su-Yun Lan proposed offering her an autograph or a picture. Since they lacked a camera, he suggested hiring an artist to paint a portrait. Su-Yun Lan then joked with the old woman, teasingly referring to her as a mum fan and inquiring if her daughter was secretly admiring him from afar. Unfortunately, the elderly woman grew increasingly annoyed with Su-Yun Lan's behavior. At that moment, Yuan Ying unexpectedly appeared and knelt before the elderly woman, addressing her as her grandmother. Su-Yun Lan was surprised to learn that the old woman was Yuan Ying's grandmother. The elderly woman introduced herself as Yinger's grandmother and playfully cracked her knuckles in front of Su-Yun Lan. Attempting to defuse the situation with humor, Su-Yun Lan told her that the previous encounter was just a talk show meant to entertain and make her happy. He also tried to impress and flatter her by complimenting her skin. However, the grandmother only gave him a sardonic smile and an irritated look before smacking his head. Subsequently, she asked Yuan Ying how good Su-Yun Lan was to her, to which she demurely replied that he was exceptionally nice. The grandmother then inquired if they had consummated their marriage and when they planned to have children. Both Su-Yun Lan and Yuan Ying were taken aback and too embarrassed to respond. Surprised by their reaction, the grandmother asked if they hadn't consummated their marriage yet. She then scolded Su-Yun Lan for not adhering to the 3 obedient virtues and called him a loser, questioning how such a man could enter the Dong family. Desperate to defend himself, Su-Yun Lan insisted that he could do it. Turning to Yuan Ying, he reassured her of his intentions. Grandma firmly pushes Su-Yun Lan and Yuan Ying into the room, sternly warning them that if the bed isn't collapsed that night, they won't be allowed to leave tomorrow. Subsequently, she locks the door. Realizing the situation, Su-Yun Lan suggests they should get started, and Yuan Ying brings up a recent issue involving the Ministry of the Army. She explains that there is a cistern on the west side of the capital, which was previously under the jurisdiction of her forbidden army. However, her 7th brother received an imperial decree to build an ore refinery base near there. Consequently, the wastewater and exhaust fumes from the refinery have polluted the cistern and poisoned crops outside the western gate of the capital. Due to this issue, Yuan Ying had to arrange for her subordinates to carry water from a farther reserve for the residents, causing complaints within the military. Su-Yun Lan inquires if this is the plan of the 7th prince and suggests that he wants to force Yuan Ying to take action. Offering his help, he tells his wife he can handle the situation. Suddenly, they hear noise from outside and hastily cover themselves with a blanket. Yuan Ying grabs Su-Yun Lan's shirt and positions herself on top of him. Grandma, curious about the situation, pokes the paper door to check on them both. Feeling embarrassed by her position on top of him, Yuan Ying suggests that they pretend to be doing something, but Su-Yun Lan responds that they don't have to pretend. Yuan Ying looks at Su-Yun Lan as if she has planned something. Then, unexpectedly, Yuan Ying spanks Su-Yun Lan's butt, causing him to scream in pain. Amused, Grandma laughs and remarks that Yuanying has her style, suggesting they celebrate with drinks later. Later on, Yuanying and Su Yunlan continue discussing how to resolve the issue with the 7th prince and Grandma's strict tutoring. Su Yunlan assures Yuanying that everything is fine and asks her to trust him. The next day at Dong House, Su Yunlan greets his grandmother and presents her with a skin-beautifying substance that he had researched at the border. He explains that if she uses it for 2 quarters, her skin would be white and glowing all day long. Impressed with his ability, Grandma agrees to try the substance. Su Yunlan massages it onto her face, asking if she feels comfortable. Pleased, Grandma compliments his service and inquires if there's anything he wants from her. Su Yunlan requests permission to go out for a walk to purchase some materials for a facial mask he wants to make for his wife. Initially, Grandma hesitates, but when she learns it's for his wife's appearance, she allows him to go and encourages him to hurry. As Su Yunlan steps outside of Dong family's residence, he exclaims that the good show is about to begin. In this particular quarry, an old man approaches a soldier, beseeching him to cease refining operations as his crops have all perished. However, the soldier responds aggressively, insulting the old man and warning him not to bother him again. Shortly thereafter, Su Yunlan and He Yan arrive on the scene, only to be insulted by the soldier as well. Upon recognizing Su Yunlan as the imperial son-in-law, the soldier inquires about his presence. Meanwhile, the old man compliments He Yan's appearance and curiously asks if he has a boyfriend. He Yan clarifies that he is a man, but the old man still expresses approval, mentioning that his grandson is also attracted to men. Urging the group to keep up, the soldier reveals that the soldiers are guarding the quarry because the 7th prince is awaiting Yinger to make a statement on behalf of the people. Su Yunlan proposes to shut down the mine and evacuate the area, but the soldier mocks him, questioning his intelligence. In response, Su Yunlan issues a sarcastic laugh and a warning not to blame him later. Demonstrating his mastery of sword fighting, Su Yunlan proceeds to control all the swords in the area, making them fly around and attack the soldiers. Confused, the soldier questions what is happening and why the swords are flying. Su Yunlan takes control of the swords and informs the soldiers that he wishes to test the quality of the ordnances. While controlling the swords, he reflects on how the 5 spirits are in harmony with each other and fall with the swords. As the swords chase them, the soldiers begin to flee, crying out for help, and some even call for their mothers. However, the swords impale themselves into the ground around the soldiers, trapping them in place and causing them to look terrified. Su Yunlan decides that, since they are soldiers of Tang, he will spare their lives. Suddenly, the 7th prince makes his appearance. A soldier, gripped by fear, clings to the 7th prince and asks why there is a flying sword when they were supposed to be waiting for the princess to capture her. Annoyed, the 7th prince smacks him, thinking that he almost ruined his plan. He then confronts Su Yunlan, accusing him of disobeying the emperor's orders and disrupting the order at the mine. Defending himself, Su Yunlan claims that he acted independently and warns the 7th prince that he, too, can go to the emperor and accuse him of slandering the royal family. The 7th prince orders Su Yunlan to be taken down, but Su Yunlan invokes his status as a royal family member and requests to be judged in the court of ancestral law. However, the 7th prince remains determined to punish Su Yunlan and commands his soldiers to take him to the ancestral law firm cell. In the ancestral law office, Su Yunlan observes that the place maintains strict discipline and is reputedly overseen by a trio of administrators. The 7th prince makes an appearance, cautioning Su Yunlan that not even his father's intervention would save him should he enter the ancestral law institute. Despite this warning, Su Yunlan remains confident that everything is under control and patiently awaits the next step. Reflecting on his time in the Hall of Demon Cult, Su Yunlan recalls the day when the Demon Lord summoned him. As the Demon Lord picked a peach from his table, Su Yunlan courteously offered to peel the fruit for his father. Interestingly, Su Yunlan muses that no one would have guessed that the world's most powerful man not only loves peaches but also despises peeling them. After preparing the peaches, Su Yunlan presents the fruit to the Demon Lord, who momentarily mistakes him for Q Lan due to the childlike expression on Su Yunlan's face. Curious, Su Yunlan inquires why his father has called him there. The Demon Lord praises Su Yunlan for his outstanding performance as a son-in-law, noting that most issues on the boards were connected to the royal family. He then advises Su Yunlan not to dwell on Chuan Qi's death, as life and death are matters of fate. The Demon Lord instructs Su Yunlan to take a token from the table, the highly sought-after black coins. Excitedly, Su Yunlan flips the token over, only for his excitement to fade into confusion when the Demon Lord reveals that he cannot relinquish the token due to Su Yunlan's inadequate strength. Instead, Su Yunlan is urged to enhance his abilities swiftly and harness the power of the 8 clans, a faction renowned for their skill in uncovering weaknesses and secrets. Upon asking about the 8 clans, the Demon Lord explains that they are the least popular of all clans, because their expertise in exposing secrets often leads to the revelation of scandals and sensitive information, such as the Demon Lord's frequent restroom visits due to a fruit allergy. The clan was established on a whim by Xuan Q Lan, the son of the Demon Lord, and Su Yunlan is encouraged to make good use of it. Grateful, he thanks his father, even though he realizes he has been assigned a challenging task. Meanwhile, back in the Ancestral Law Office where Su Yunlan is being held captive, a letter containing useless information about the Demon Lord's bathroom habits is smuggled in via an insect while the guards slumber. Subsequently, Mouse delivers another letter, which appears to be the information Su Yunlan has been anticipating. Huan Judicial barges into the room, threatening Su Yunlan with a conviction for defying the Emperor's orders and demolishing the refinery without authorization. Frustrated and disillusioned by the Ancestral Law's hypocrisy, Su Yunlan recites a cryptic poem to Huan Judicial, who fails to grasp its underlying meaning. With a smirk, Su Yunlan challenges Huan Judicial to guess who arrived in the Yihang Yuan capital the previous night, donning a red bellaband, calling for a girl, and using a leather whip to flagellate himself. In response, Huan Judicial kneels and addresses Su Yunlan as Prince Consort. Amused, Su Yunlan sarcastically questions why Huan Judicial would kneel when he should be sentencing him. Huan Judicial laughs uneasily, his expression pleading, and assures Su Yunlan that they will not convict him. Smiling, Su Yunlan recognizes that he has successfully turned the tables. The soldier approaches the 7th prince and, to his surprise, assures him that Huang Shan, who may seem selfless and fair to the outside world, is actually quite greedy. He then reveals that he sent 2 of his men to secretly place 1,000 taels of gold in Huang Shan's room. Furthermore, he confidently states that Su Yunlan will surely meet his end that very day. Feeling assured, the 7th prince seems confident in their plan and proudly boasts about having prepared a dog head chopper. Meanwhile, Huan Judicial silences the court and reminds them of the official process of the trial. He explains that if the suspect is found guilty in the first instance, he shall be sentenced on the spot. However, if he is not found guilty, the case will move to the second instance, where the judge will decide on an appropriate punishment. A prison person pleads for his brother's innocence, but Huan Judicial silences him, citing the official investigation. He then proceeds to announce the verdict for Su Yunlan for allegedly destroying the 7th prince's ore refinery, causing a cough in the process. Growing impatient with the proceedings, the 7th prince urges the soldiers to bring up the dog head chopper. He realizes that Su Yunlan's demise would also affect his sister's military backing and ultimately benefit him. However, Huan Judicial declares Su Yunlan not guilty, shocking the 7th prince, who accuses him of destroying the ore refinery and questions his audacity in declaring Su Yunlan not guilty. Huan Judicial defends the court's decision, citing the Imperial Emperor's orders. The 7th prince questions the court's credibility, but Huan Judicial reveals that the flying swords actually came from the 7th prince's own facility, not from Su Yunlan, and that technically, he never even touched them. Huan Judicial also highlights that Su Yunlan's martial abilities are ordinary compared to peak martial experts. Subsequently, Yuan Ying appears and announces that Su Yunlan can return home and await their second and final trial. Grateful, Su Yunlan thanks Huan Judicial and invites him for a drink. He then smirks while bidding farewell to the 7th prince, who is left seething. Yuan Ying compliments Su Yunlan for his ability to find solutions to legal problems. Su Yunlan expresses doubt about winning the next day's trial and reveals that one of the 7th prince's concubines is actually the illegitimate child of Judge Chen Gang, as reported by the 8th clan. That night, in the Dong family home, Su Yunlan appears visibly shaken as he greets his grandmother. His grandmother scolds him for causing trouble by going to an ore refinery and staying overnight. She reminds him that as a man from the Dong family, he should understand and adhere to the 3 obediences and 4 virtues. Su Yunlan apologizes for his mistake and tries to explain that he was wrongly accused and was only trying to help. Yuan Ying supports his claim that he was acting for the greater good. Surprised, their grandmother exclaims that a man from the Dong family did a good deed but was wrongly accused. She then threatens to chop the 7th prince into pieces if she ever sees him, regardless of his father's status. The next day, in court, Su Yunlan is found guilty of unlawful actions for allegedly interfering with the guards at the ore refinery and provoking them. The judge accuses him of disregarding military power and suggests that he should be punished. The judge and 7th prince share eye contact and smile at each other. Su Yunlan calls the accusation a farce and sarcastically comments on how helping old people is now considered interfering with the military. The 7th prince wonders how Su Yunlan will escape punishment now that it's one-on-one and the patriarchal clan system is inherently biased. Su Yunlan insults the 7th prince, causing him to become angry and curse him, while 2 soldiers restrain the enraged prince. Su Yunlan feels confident, with his grandmother and wife supporting him. During the night, the 7th prince encountered an unknown man. The 7th prince expressed his concern about their failure to defeat Su Yunlan in a trial. However, the unknown man reassured him and presented a gift to assist them, handing him a letter. Upon receiving the paper from the unknown man, the 7th prince found its contents amusing as he read the letter. Consequently, he expressed confidence in their success, even over his sister. Intriguingly, the letter revealed information about the minister at the border and the princess. Meanwhile, at the 7th prince's mansion, a member of the 8th clan observed the strictness of the guards. Despite the tight security, the 8th clan member managed to sneak past them as easily as a fly and disappeared into the night. At the princess's mansion, the 8th clan man reported to Su Yunlan that they had tracked the carriage to Yi Chunyuan but did not find the 7th prince. Furthermore, the mansion's security was tight, so much so that even random pests such as mice could not get in, except for flies. Feeling frustrated, Su Yunlan stated that it was complicated to even get out, and that it was a hassle. He thought that the person he was seeing tonight must be extraordinary, and he was eager to see it for himself. Su Yunlan asked if the 8th clan man had specially trained flies in his team. Delighted, the clan member showed Su Yunlan a small box with 3 flies, each possessing a unique feature. Curious, Su Yunlan asked about the ordinary-looking fly. The clan member revealed that it had been caught by their youngest member when he went to the toilet, making Su Yunlan cover his nose in disgust. Outside of Dong Mansion, Su Yunlan used his 9 shared souls technique to possess the fly. Subsequently, Su Yunlan flew into the 7th prince's mansion. He remarked that the mansion was luxurious but corrupt. Pondering how he could find the 7th prince in such a large mansion, he found himself in the kitchen, where he landed in a pot but was spotted and chased by a servant cook. Managing to escape into the kitchen, he then found himself in the bathroom, where all the women took a bath. Astonished, he muttered heaven. In the midst of this, Su Yunlan landed on the head of the 7th prince. The servant maid noticed the fly and informed the 7th prince, who panicked and asked the maid to remove the fly immediately. Su Yunlan was surprised that the prince was afraid of flies. As the servant maid tried to remove him, he flew back to the prince's head, causing the servant maid to slap the prince several times. After a minute, Su Yunlan flew away. The 7th prince asked the servant maid if the fly had left, and she confirmed that it had. Grateful, the 7th prince promised her future prosperity, and the servant maid thanked him. Su Yunlan was shocked when he recognized the maidservant as Yinger's maid and realized that the letter had fallen into the 7th prince's hands, worrying that this was not good. As the next day dawned in Dong's mansion, Yuanying expressed her disbelief and upset that Kaeyun would betray her. She wondered why her housekeeper had never returned since she left the previous day. At that moment, the door burst open, and Grandma entered the room, her face a mask of fury. Clearly outraged by the news of betrayal, Grandma's tone was one of righteous anger. Grandma was concerned about the violation of their family's basic ideals, and, as a result, pledged to take care of the matter. Subsequently, Grandma praised Su Yunlan, saying that it's rare to have someone like him in their family and that she couldn't let him be betrayed in this way. In response, Su Yunlan told his grandmother that she was the only one he could rely on. The following day on the court, Su Yunlan confronted the 7th prince with his bruised face. Suspiciously, the 7th prince doubted Su Yunlan did something last night. At that moment, Judge Liang Ruohai silenced the court and ordered the guard to arrest Su Yunlan and Princess Tang Ying. Confused, Su Yunlan wondered why his wife was being brought to the court as well and questioned why his grandmother hadn't shown up yet. Judge Liang Ruohai then explained that Princess Tang Ying was suspected of treason for plotting with the border officers, forming parties for her personal gain, and attempting to gain control over the border military power. Moreover, he presented a letter found at the princess's house as evidence. However, some civilians expressed disbelief, stating that the princess had always been good to the people. Skeptical of the letter, Su Yunlan accused the judge of writing it himself. Suddenly, the seventh prince spoke up, stating that he could prove the accusations with the help of the princess's maid, Kaeyun. At that moment, Grandma Dong arrived at the court, and both the seventh prince and Judge Liang Ruohai welcomed her with respect. Intrigued, Su Yunlan noticed the respectful behavior of Liang Ruohai and the seventh prince toward Mrs. Dong. Yuan Ying then revealed that Mrs. Dong was the founding general and the first general of the Tang Empire. Impressed, Su Yunlan was in awe of her patron's family's power and influence. In court, Grandma Dong reminded the judge that the Dong family was not at his mercy, and the Dong family head was correct. Additionally, Su Yunlan spoke up, telling his grandmother that he had caught the maid leaving the seventh prince's mansion. Proudly, his grandmother praised him and called for Kaeyun, the maid. Guilty, Kaeyun admitted her mistake and begged for forgiveness. However, Grandma Dong was unforgiving and executed her with a sword. Shocked, Su Yunlan thought that Grandma was worthy of being the founding general. Defending Su Yunlan in court, Grandma Dong reminded them that the dynasty was neglecting the common people. She declared that Su Yunlan's act of disrupting the iron refinery was actually for the people. Furthermore, she warned anyone who dared to harm Su Yunlan that she was still skilled in sword fighting and wouldn't hesitate to use it. The civilians were impressed with the Dong family's commitment to fighting for the people, and Judge Liang Ruohai announced that Su Yunlan was not guilty of disrupting the refinery. Grateful, Su Yunlan praised his grandmother for her amazing leadership. At the seaside, Grandma Dong questioned Su Yunlan about the present he had given. Su Yunlan invited Grandma Dong to join him and Yuan Ying on their family beach, but Yuan Ying seemed hesitant about Su Yunlan's swimwear. Nevertheless, Grandma Dong seemed unfazed and encouraged Yuan Ying that their family had nothing to be afraid of. Su Yunlan told his wife not to be afraid since they were the only three there. Presenting a volcanic rock mask to Grandma Dong, Su Yunlan claimed that it had cleansing properties and could help her look more beautiful. He also offered a homemade smoothie that tasted like orange, which he recommended for the summer season. While Su Yunlan was putting sunscreen on Yuan Ying's back, he received a coded message from He Yan. He informed Grandma that he needed to step away for a moment. Su Yunlan then headed to the Demon Clan Hall, where He Yan informed him about the Demon Lord's key deviation during cultivation, and that he needed immediate treatment to survive. Surprised, Su Yunlan requested He Yan to arrange a meeting with his father. However, He Yan informed him that Fu Lanqi had taken the holy fire token of the Demon King and was not allowing anyone near the ice cellar where the Demon King had retreated. Determined, Su Yunlan stated that no one could stop him, as he was the Demon King's son. Inside the Demon King's mansion, Su Yunlan confronted Fu Lanqi, demanding to see his father. Fu Lanqi explained that, by the Demon King's orders, no one was allowed to disturb his cultivation during this critical time. A member of the cult joined in, questioning Su Yunlan's intentions and warning him not to harm the Demon King. Su Yunlan wondered if the only person he could trust was himself, as the demon cult was in chaos, and he had to find out the truth. At the Black Rider training ground, Yuan Ying questioned Su Yunlan's desire to meet Yehu. Su Yunlan responded that he needed to hear from someone as loyal as Yehu to understand what was going on. When they confronted Yehu, he remained silent and continued training soldiers. Frustrated with Yehu's lack of cooperation, Yuan Ying drew her sword, ready to force Yehu to talk. However, Yehu effortlessly blocked her attacks with his trident. Unyielding, Yehu told them that he only answered to the Holy Fire Spirit, and if they wanted answers, they would need to use the Holy Fire token. Yuan Ying then threatened to beat Yehu until he gave them the information they needed. Brandishing her sword, Su Yunlan tried to stop his wife. After a stick of incense, Su Yunlan realized that Yehu, despite his deadly moves, was holding back and refusing to answer their questions directly. He also questioned Yehu's loyalty, as he was training soldiers instead of guarding his father's seclusion, and his claim of recognizing the Holy Fire Order was considered a joke. As Su Yunlan sensed something amiss, he halted his wife and expressed his doubts. He informed her that Uncle Yehu was unwilling to speak, proposing that they should return and plan their next move. On Demon Cult Mountain, He Yan proudly presented the freshly baked blind box of gossip to the masked clan members, emphatically remarking that it couldn't be sold for a mere 80 cents. One member commented on the surprisingly cheap price, while others eagerly asked to see it. Upon confirming its contents, they laughed heartily, and shared gossip, ranging from scandalous rumors about the head of Black Cloud City's homosexuality to embarrassing bathroom incidents. They even joked about Commander Yehu's peculiar love for eating sweet potatoes while farting. One member enthusiastically shared gossip about the new left ambassador being buried in research due to heartbreak. As the members bickered and playfully accused each other of various crimes related to gossip, including one about Zhang San wiping his feces on Lai Si's shirt, He Yan marveled at the undeniable power of gossip. Eventually, Fu Lanky interrupted the lively bickering of the clan and called them bastards. He Yan smirked with satisfaction as the plan succeeded. At that precise moment, Su Yunlan stealthily sneaked into Demon Cult Mountain to see his father. When he was about to open the back door, he suddenly got chills and was surprised by his uncle Chu Qi. Su Yunlan looked back and stumbled over his words, mentioning the name of Chu Qi. He then earnestly requested to see his father, but Chu Qi informed him that his father had asked him to leave a letter for him instead. In the letter, Su Yunlan's father reassuringly conveyed that he was fine and simply needed to seclude himself and train for the future. Chu Qi smiled warmly and warned Su Yunlan not to get caught again in the future, but agreed to keep his secret this time. Grateful, Su Yunlan thanked him and left. Later, the back door opened, revealing the 7th Prince. The 7th Prince expressed his admiration for the mysterious Mister's brilliant plan and firmly believed that with his help, he could become the lord of the Tang dynasty. Chu Qi responded modestly, stating that he was flattered. Unexpectedly, Su Yunlan reappeared in the form of a squirrel, quietly spectating them from a distance. It was then that he discovered his uncle Chu Qi had betrayed his father. At the Demon Cult Mountain, He Yan accuses Fu Lanky of stealing the Holy Fire Order to conceal the Demon Lord Ma Zhen's whereabouts. He then inquires of the group who else is on their side. Unexpectedly, one of the 8 clan men responds by saying that, in the past, everyone would have revealed the secrets of the paper. Meanwhile, Fu Lanky mockingly derides the 8 clan group and their department, which was personally established by the young master, stating that it was far-sighted. Concurrently, a member wearing a mask notices something in the sky and points it out, revealing that it's a kite adorned with the face of Fu Lanky wearing makeup. Upon seeing this, both He Yan and an 8 clan member react by vomiting, and He Yan questions if Fu Lanky is attempting to make them sick. Fu Lanky responds with a sinister laugh, proclaiming that they will understand later. He then snaps his fingers, causing the kite to explode. Suddenly, some masked members exclaim that they smell something fragrant and pleasant, which others seem to enjoy. He Yan, surprised, asks if they have never smelled deodorant before. However, the situation takes a turn for the worse as a member of the demon clan transforms into a cursed demon, losing control and attacking the 8 clan member and He Yan. The 8 clan men urgently yell at He Yan to flee, explaining that it's as if the demon masks have transformed into cursed demons themselves. In response, He Yan quickly becomes serious and assaults the cursed demon with his palm, while the 8 clan man elaborates that they have been cursed and have lost their spiritual consciousness. He suggests that they should sprint to the top of the hill, where the terrain is more complex, in hopes of evading the cursed demon. Later on, He Yan and the other 8 clan members find themselves in a cave, possibly after escaping danger. However, one of his members morphs into a demon and prepares to attack He Yan. Just then, Su Yunlan appears out of nowhere and employs his technique on the cursed member for a brief moment before returning to his body. He Yan feels relieved that Su Yunlan has arrived in time and inquires if Su Yunlan was able to locate Ma Zhen. Unfortunately, Su Yunlan discloses that he didn't find him but instead uncovered a shocking secret. Amidst the chaos, Fu Lanky commands that they be searched. Recognizing the danger, Su Yunlan cautions that it's not safe to remain in this location for an extended period and proposes finding a secure place first. Puzzled, He Yan asks where they should go. In response, Su Yunlan proudly smiles and tells him that he is merely a little boy who has been spoiled by his grandmother. In the palace hall, the 7th Prince entered and respectfully paid homage to the Royal Majesty. The Royal Majesty inquired as to why the 7th Prince had visited the demon sect, which had been in turmoil recently. The 7th Prince proceeded to explain that the Piao Fu Huang incident was instigated by Su Yunlan, who had sent his subordinate, He Yan, to provoke the children of the demon cult and slander the new left envoy Fu Lanky. Furthermore, he mentioned that Su Yunlan interfered with the demon retreat, but the children had fortunately arrived in time to avert any difficulties. Continuing on, the 7th Prince detailed how Su Yunlan had destroyed the iron smelting factory, which had been licensed by the emperor, and subsequently disrupted the demon sect. He concluded that Su Yunlan was a curse and should be apprehended. Agreeing with this assessment, the royal majesty ordered the 7th prince to capture Su Yunlan himself. The 7th prince smirked and agreed as he took his leave from the palace hall. Meanwhile, at the princess's mansion, a soldier reported to the 7th prince that they had been unable to locate Su Yunlan within the premises. Surprised, the 7th prince sought clarification, only to learn that they couldn't find the princess or the youngest prince either. Alarmed, the 7th prince deduced that they must be hiding at the Dong mansion. He instructed the soldier to accompany him, indicating his intention to investigate the Dong mansion as well. Upon arriving at the Dong mansion, the 7th prince introduced himself and explained that he was acting under orders from the emperor to apprehend Su Yunlan, requesting their cooperation. However, Grandma Dong responded insolently, and the 7th prince's horse was suddenly startled, causing him to fall. As the 7th prince rose to his feet and cursed his horse, Mrs. Dong brandished the founding sword, asserting that even the emperor must kneel before it. Instantly, the 7th prince and his soldiers knelt. However, Mrs. Dong quickly changed the subject, chastising the prince for repeatedly embarrassing her family's boy. The prince attempted to defend himself, stating that he was merely following orders to arrest Su Yunlan. Unmoved, Grandma lashed out at him with her sword, narrowly missing him, and suggested they go to the princess mansion instead. Still, the prince insisted that Su Yunlan might be hiding at the Dong mansion. Growing angrier, Mrs. Dong forcefully pushed him, causing him to fly back a short distance and sustain injuries from the impact. The prince realized that she remained powerful even after all these years. Mrs. Dong fixed an intense gaze upon him and ordered him to leave, swinging her sword in an attempt to slice the prince. Stunned, the 7th prince acknowledged that Mrs. Dong was as formidable as ever. Grandma Dong commanded everyone to depart and never return, a command the soldiers obeyed. Subsequently, within the Dong mansion, Su Yunlan expressed his admiration for Grandma Dong's unwavering faith in him. Dismissing his praise, she claimed she could easily see through him, adding that Yuan Ying also trusted him. Following their conversation, Yuan Ying chimed in, pointing out that hiding was not a viable solution, and that they needed to determine the nature of the incense powder they had discovered in the demon sect. Su Yunlan concurred, asserting that he must also find his father's whereabouts. Suddenly, a member of the 8 clans entered the room, informing Su Yunlan that they had at last uncovered the reason behind Lao Ba's loss of control. Yuan Ying and Su Yunlan found themselves in a heated argument about the investigation. Yuan Ying firmly informed Su Yunlan that he was not permitted to investigate. Nevertheless, Su Yunlan disagreed, asserting that since the matter involved the demon cult, and as the young master of the demon cult, he was obliged to go. In response, Yuan Ying countered that the fragrance powder, which had impacted the children of the demon cult, had originated from Yi Chun Yuan. Consequently, Su Yunlan could not go. Instead, she volunteered to go on his behalf, emphasizing the danger posed by the officers and soldiers outside. However, Su Yunlan remained unconvinced and argued that he was not a man who would merely hide behind his wife. Additionally, he underscored the danger of Yi Chun Yuan, a place notorious for its fireworks. Eventually, Su Yunlan relented and agreed to heed Yuan Ying's advice. He pledged not to interfere and asked the 8 clans to investigate in his place. Yuan Ying smiled, relieved that he had finally agreed to the arrangement. On the night of Yi Hong Yuan, Yuan Ying, disguised as a man, was greeted by a woman. This woman showered compliments on Yuan Ying's appearance and inquired if it was her first time at the establishment. The woman then boasted about the girls at the venue, which piqued Yuan Ying's interest. Expressing her curiosity in the young girls, Yuan Ying asked the woman to take her there. The woman suggested that it was the perfect time for Yuan Ying to visit Yi Chun Academy, as they had a new dancer who was sure to impress her. She then invited Yuan Ying into a private room. Shortly after, the woman informed her that the new girl would arrive soon. While waiting for the dancer, Yuan Ying began investigating the room for any clues or evidence. She ceased her search when she heard a knock on the door. As the new dancer entered, Yuan Ying concealed her face with a fan. The dancer greeted her and complimented her appearance. Yuan Ying inquired if she was the new dancer and requested a dance. In response, the new dancer showcased her dancing skills. However, during the performance, she devised a plan to put Yuan Ying to sleep. On the other hand, Yuan Ying, disappointed with the dancer's performance, also concocted a plan to take advantage of the dancer's proximity and knock her out. As they simultaneously struck each other, they snatched the coverings from their faces, revealing their true identities and expressing surprise. In the following moments, Yuan Ying, clearly annoyed, questioned Su Yunlan, whom she had mistaken for one of the 8 clans meant to investigate the area. It turned out that Su Yunlan had also disguised himself, this time as a dancer. Yuan Ying grabbed his dress, accusing him of acting for personal gain and calling him a girl. Su Yunlan defended himself, denying the accusations and explaining that he had merely dressed up as a woman. Infuriated, Yuan Ying held a pair of scissors, asking if he wanted to become the second He Yan as she threatened to cut him. Thanks for watching. If you want the next part, please comment the word demon.